Oh, Mike, it's easy. Like, this is Mike, he plays Bob, and I'm Bob, I play Mike. Wait a minute.
That's right.
No, wait, listen.
In 1969, Robert Reed became America's favorite TV dad on The Brady Bunch. But behind that perfect smile was a man living in hell. He hated the show so much, he refused to film the final episode. He fought with producers, wrote angry memos about lazy scripts, and drowned his frustrations in alcohol. But that wasn't even his darkest secret. Today, we're getting into why America's favorite dad spent 23 years regretting the role that made him famous. Robert Reed's life started far from the bright lights of Hollywood. He was born John Robert Reitz Jr. in Highland Park, Illinois, to parents who had been high school sweethearts. When he was 8, his family moved to Muskogee, Oklahoma, where his father became a turkey and cattle farmer. Life on the farm was simple, but Reed's interests were anything but. While other kids focused on agriculture, he was drawn to acting, music, and public speaking. At Central High School, he stood out. He had a natural talent for drama and a voice that made him a strong performer in vocal music. He also worked as a radio announcer and even wrote and produced radio dramas. His skills in public speaking won him a statewide competition with the National Forensic Society. By the time he graduated in 1950, it was clear he wasn't going to stay in Oklahoma. He enrolled at Northwestern University in Illinois, a school known for its strong theater program. There, he studied under Alvina Krauss, a legendary acting coach who pushed her students to be disciplined and authentic. Reed took on leading roles in multiple stage productions and proved himself as a serious performer. He later joked that Northwestern had shaken the Okie out of me, but the truth was that it had shaped him into the actor he wanted to be. Eager to refine his craft even further, he spent a term at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. Shakespearean theater became a deep passion for him. When he returned to the U.S., he threw himself into acting anywhere he could. Off-Broadway plays, summer stock theater in Pennsylvania, and even a Shakespearean acting group called the Shakespeareites. Every performance helped him sharpen his skills. In the late 1950s, he took a risk and moved to Los Angeles to break into television. It didn't take long for him to land his first role. In 1959, he appeared on Father Knows Best, a popular family sitcom. More small roles followed in shows like Men into Space and Lawman, but his big break came in 1961 when he landed the role of Kenneth Preston in The Defenders. From 1961 to 1965, he played a young defense attorney working alongside his father, played by E.G. Marshall. The show was bold for its time, tackling issues like abortion, civil rights, and the death penalty, topics that most television networks avoided. Created by Reginald Rose, it was serious, intelligent, and ahead of its time. Critics loved The Defenders. It won 14 Primetime Emmy Awards, including 3 for Outstanding Drama Series. The show changed how legal dramas were made, influencing many that came after. Reed's character often struggled with the moral weight of their cases, making him a relatable figure for viewers. His performance proved he had real depth as an actor. But despite its success, the show ran into trouble when CBS moved it to a weaker time slot. Ratings dropped, and in 1965, it was canceled. Even so, it remained one of the most respected legal dramas in television history. Reed's next big move came in 1964, when he made his Broadway debut. He stepped into the lead role in Barefoot in the Park, replacing Robert Redford. This was a major change for him. The play, written by Neil Simon and directed by Mike Nichols, was a lighthearted comedy about newlyweds adjusting to married life in a tiny New York apartment. Reed played Paul Bratter, a serious young lawyer trying to keep up with his carefree wife. The show was a massive success. It ran for over 1,500 performances, making it Simon's longest-running hit at the time. Reed's performance proved he could handle comedy just as well as drama. It also introduced him to Broadway's top creative minds, giving him opportunities beyond television. After The Defenders, Reed became a familiar face on many popular shows. In Family Affair, 1966, he played a wise and thoughtful teacher. In Ironside, 1967, he took on a dramatic guest role in an episode about perseverance and hope. Then, in The Mod Squad, 1972, he appeared in a story about crime and justice during a time of social change. Each role showed his ability to adapt. He could play serious, emotional characters just as easily as he could step into lighter roles. In 1968, he took on a rare film role in Star, a musical biopic starring Julie Andrews. The film told the story of British actress Gertrude Lawrence, with Reed playing one of her love interests. It had a big budget and grand musical numbers, but audiences didn't connect with it. The film barely made back its costs, and critics were divided. Some praised Andrews' performance, while others felt the film was too long. Even though it wasn't a hit, it gave Reed a chance to work with major Hollywood talent and expand his career beyond television. That same year, Reed returned to Broadway in Avanti, a comedy about an American businessman caught up in Italian bureaucracy. He played Alexander Ben Claiborne, a role that required both humor and depth. The play didn't last long. It closed after only 23 performances. But Reed's performance stood out, proving his dedication to theater and his ability to take on different kinds of roles. Throughout the 1960s, Reed refused to be typecast. He moved between television, film, and stage, constantly challenging himself. Whether playing a serious lawyer, a romantic lead, or a guest character on a hit show, he showed his range. Robert Reed never set out to become America's favorite TV dad. He had trained for years in classical theater, studying Shakespeare and perfecting his craft on the stage. But in 1969, he stepped into the role of Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch, a sitcom about a blended family. A widowed father with 3 sons marries a woman with 3 daughters, and together they learn what it means to be a family. The show was lighthearted, but it also had heart. It wasn't just about goofy situations or life lessons neatly wrapped up in 30 minutes. It was about people learning to live together, love each other, and grow. Reed made Mike Brady feel real. He played the character with warmth and wisdom, giving advice to his on-screen children with a calm, steady presence. Audiences loved him, and for many, he became the perfect example of what a father should be. But behind the scenes, Reed had complicated feelings about the show. He hadn't even been the first choice for the role. Gene Hackman was originally considered, but was passed over because he wasn't well known enough at the time. Reed got the part because of a twist of fate. He had been under contract with Paramount for a TV adaptation of Barefoot in the Park. But when the studio decided to cast an African-American lead instead, they reassigned Reed to the Brady Bunch. It wasn't a job he had chased, but it was a steady paycheck. But Reed had a problem with the Brady Bunch, a big one. He thought the scripts were lazy, filled with ridiculous scenarios, and lacking any real depth. As an actor trained in Shakespearean drama, he felt the show could be so much more than what it was. But creator Sherwood Schwartz saw things differently. He wanted a light-hearted family comedy, not a deep exploration of blended family struggles. This difference in vision led to a behind-the-scenes battle that lasted the entire run of the show. Reed didn't just complain, he fought. He wrote detailed memos dissecting plot holes, character inconsistencies, and what he called the contrived, ludicrous nature of many episodes. In one interview, he said the scripts operated at only 30% capacity, meaning they weren't even trying to reach their full potential. His frustration wasn't just about bad writing, it was about wasted opportunity. He believed the show could tackle real issues like divorce, remarriage, and the struggles of a blended family. But television in the late 60s wasn't ready for that kind of realism. Schwartz, however, didn't buy it. He called The Brady Bunch a people comedy, designed for broad appeal and simple entertainment. He had no interest in deep storytelling or complex character arcs. To him, the show was about delivering fun, feel-good moments, not exploring the emotional struggles of a blended family. Reed's intellectual approach clashed with Schwartz's commercial mindset, and in the end, Schwartz won. That didn't stop Reed from fighting. His memos weren't just nitpicking, they were passionate pleas for better television. He once wrote a 6-page analysis breaking down why a joke about Alice mistaking ink spots for real ones didn't make sense. In another memo, he argued that mixing farce, slapstick, and satire within a single episode confused the audience and weakened the show's impact. His complaints often fell on deaf ears, but they reflected a deep commitment to quality storytelling, even in a sitcom aimed at families. One of Reed's favorite arguments was that other shows managed to balance humor and intelligence. He pointed to MASH, which blended comedy with social commentary, and even Gilligan's Island, another Sherwood Schwartz creation, which at least maintained a consistent comedic tone. Reed believed that if the Brady Bunch had stuck to a clear vision, whether it was serious or silly, it could have been a much stronger show. Instead, he felt it floundered somewhere in the middle, never quite deciding what it wanted to be. Schwartz, of course, saw things differently. He wasn't trying to make MASH. He wasn't trying to push boundaries or make statements about family dynamics. He just wanted to create a show that made people smile. And whether Reed liked it or not, the Brady Bunch did exactly that. Despite all of Reed's objections, the show became a beloved classic, remembered more for its feel-good nostalgia than any deep artistic ambition. Robert Reed's refusal to appear in the final episode of The Brady Bunch wasn't just a last-minute decision. It was the result of years of frustration. The episode, The Hair-Brained Scheme, had a silly plot where Bobby Brady sells hair tonic that accidentally turns Greg's hair orange right before his high school graduation. Reed hated it. He thought it was unrealistic and made the show look ridiculous. He argued that no hair product could cause such an effect. That wasn't entirely true. Some actually can. But Reed refused to listen. He made it clear he would not be part of the episode. The production team had to adjust at the last minute. Instead of rewriting the episode, they found a quick fix. Carol Brady, played by Florence Henderson, mentioned in passing that Mike Brady was out of town. It was an odd explanation, especially for such an important moment in Greg's life. Fans found it strange, but at the time, many didn't even notice Reed was missing. Even though he refused to act, Reed still showed up on set. He didn't just stop by, he stayed. He watched as the cast filmed their scenes, making his disapproval obvious. Some crew members said he muttered complaints under his breath. Others said he stood just outside of the actors' sight lines, creating an uncomfortable atmosphere. Schwartz eventually confronted him. He asked why Reed was there when he had refused to participate. Reed's answer was simple: "This is my show, and I'm interested in what goes on in my show." It was a strange response, but it made sense. As much as he fought against the scripts, Reed still felt deeply connected to the Brady Bunch. He hated where it was going, but he couldn't walk away completely. Things got so tense that studio executives considered having him removed from the set. But Reed wasn't just another actor. He was a mentor to the younger cast members. Nobody wanted to create more drama by forcing him to leave. Eventually, he left on his own when he realized production would continue without him. For Schwartz, this was the breaking point. Reed had been difficult for years, always challenging the scripts and demanding changes. Sometimes he had a point. He even accused Schwartz of reusing plots from Gilligan's Island. But in Schwartz's eyes, Reed's constant complaints only made things harder. After Reed walked off the final episode, Schwartz made a decision. If the Brady Bunch was renewed for another season, Reed would be replaced. He even started looking at other actors, including Robert Foxworth, to take over the role of Mike Brady. None of that mattered in the end. ABC canceled the Brady Bunch shortly after filming Wrapped. Ratings had been dropping, and the introduction of Cousin Oliver hadn't helped. The network also faced financial challenges. Renewing the show would mean renegotiating contracts for all 9 main cast members. ABC decided it wasn't worth it. Robert Reed's career after the Brady Bunch was filled with roles that proved he was far more than just the wholesome TV dad. While millions knew him as Mike Brady, he spent years tackling complex, challenging characters that showcased his depth as an actor. During his time on the Brady Bunch, Reed also had a recurring role on Mannix, a gritty detective series starring Mike Connors. From 1968 to 1975, he played Lieutenant Adam Tobias, a tough LAPD officer who often worked alongside private investigator Joe Mannix. This role gave Reed a chance to break away from his sitcom image, showing audiences a more serious, authoritative side. Though he appeared in only 22 episodes, his performance was consistently strong. Interestingly, since both Mannix and The Brady Bunch were produced by Paramount, the famous Brady house made occasional appearances in Mannix episodes, creating a strange but fascinating crossover. In 1975, Reed took on one of the most daring roles of his career in the medical drama Medical Center. He starred in a 2-part episode called The Fourth Sex as Dr. Pat Caddison, a surgeon who comes out as transgender and seeks gender reassignment surgery. This was groundbreaking television, one of the first times a major network addressed gender identity in such a direct and serious way. Reed's performance was powerful and deeply human, earning him an Emmy nomination. At a time when transgender issues were rarely acknowledged on TV, his portrayal was ahead of its time and widely praised for its sensitivity. The following year, Reed appeared in the acclaimed miniseries Rich Man, Poor Man, based on Irwin Shaw's novel. He played Teddy Boylan, a manipulative and morally ambiguous figure whose actions deeply affected the lives of the main characters. This was a far cry from the kind and patient Mike Brady. Boylan was a complex and unsettling character, and Reed played him with a chilling realism. His performance was so impactful that it earned him another Emmy nomination. The miniseries itself was groundbreaking, blending historical events like McCarthyism with deeply personal drama, and Reed's contribution was a key part of its success. Then came Roots, the 1977 miniseries that changed television forever. The series told the brutal and emotional story of African American history, from slavery to emancipation. Reed played Dr. William Reynolds, a seemingly kind plantation owner who ultimately upheld the oppressive system of slavery. His character was written with nuance. He wasn't a stereotypical villain, but rather a man who, despite appearing compassionate, still participated in a deeply unjust system. Reed's performance was chilling and thought-provoking, earning him yet another Emmy nomination. Roots was a cultural phenomenon, sparking nationwide conversations about race and history, and Reed's role in it proved once again that he was willing to take on challenging, important stories. Beyond television, Reed never lost his love for the stage. Throughout his career, he remained committed to theater, performing in both classical and modern productions. He took on Shakespearean roles in Romeo and Juliet and A Midsummer Night's Dream, while later in life, he appeared in plays like Death Trap and Finishing Touches. Even as his health declined, he continued performing, proving that acting was not just a career for him, but a lifelong passion. Robert Reed was America's perfect TV dad, but off-screen, he lived a life full of secrets. To millions, he was Mike Brady, the wise and caring patriarch of the Brady Bunch. In reality, he was a Shakespearean-trained actor who resented the sitcom's lightweight scripts. More than that, he was a gay man in an industry where coming out could end a career. He spent his life balancing public admiration with private turmoil, a struggle that followed him to his final days. Born John Robert Reitz Jr. in 1932, Reid trained at Northwestern University and London's Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. He had the talent and ambition for serious theater, but Hollywood had other plans. In 1969, he landed the role that would define him, Mike Brady, the wholesome father of 6. The show was a cultural phenomenon, but it boxed him in. Playing the ideal suburban dad made hiding his real identity even more necessary. At the time, being openly gay in Hollywood was career suicide. His co-stars knew the truth, but never spoke about it. Florence Henderson, who played his TV wife, later said, "He was an unhappy person. If he didn't have to live this double life, so much of his anger would have disappeared." That anger simmered on set. Reid had no patience for the show's silly storylines, and he let everyone know it. He frequently clashed with creator Sherwood Schwartz, arguing that the scripts insulted both the audience and his own training. When the writers refused to change a ridiculous plot about Greg Brady's hair turning orange, Reid flat out refused to film the episode. That was the series finale. His frustrations weren't just about bad writing, though. They came from the pressure of maintaining an image that wasn't his own. Away from the cameras, Reid was a complicated man. He drank heavily, withdrew from people, and kept his personal life locked away. His one attempt at a conventional marriage ended quickly. In 1954, he wed Marilyn Rosenberger, and they had a daughter, Karen. The marriage lasted only 5 years. It was clear that Reid was living a lie, and being a husband only intensified his internal struggle. After the divorce, he avoided serious relationships. Friends believed he was too afraid of exposure to find real happiness. Despite his personal battles, he was devoted to his Brady Bunch family. He mentored the child actors, encouraged their creativity, and even paid for them to travel to London. Susan Olsen, who played Cindy Brady, later credited Reid with shaping her views on acceptance and equality. "My dad was gay," she wrote in 2013. "He taught me that love transcends labels." His co-stars understood his pain, but their support couldn't erase the loneliness he felt. As the years passed, Reid sought fulfillment outside Hollywood. He took guest roles in shows like Hawaii Five-0 and Charlie's Angels, but he found his true passion in teaching. At UCLA, he coached young actors in Shakespearean theater. One colleague described him as generous and brilliant, a stark contrast to his tense reputation on the Brady Bunch set. Teaching was his escape, the one place where he didn't have to play a part. Robert Reid was diagnosed with HIV in the spring of 1991. At the time, he kept it a secret, revealing it to almost no one. His death certificate later confirmed HIV as a contributing factor, but he never developed AIDS. The public wouldn't know about his diagnosis until after his death in 1992. The news came as a shock, especially since Reid had spent his life guarding his privacy. Even his closest co-stars had no idea. By the time doctors discovered his HIV status, Reid was already dealing with other serious health issues. That same year, in November 1991, he was diagnosed with colon lymphoma, a rare, aggressive form of cancer. His immune system, already weakened by HIV, struggled to fight it. Despite chemotherapy, his condition worsened. Yet he kept working, performing in the stage play Love Letters alongside Betsy Palmer. He stayed on tour until just weeks before his death, refusing to let his illness define him. Reid's secrecy wasn't just about his health, it was part of a much larger battle he had fought his entire life. As a gay man in Hollywood during the 1970s and 80s, he knew that being open about his sexuality could end his career. The entertainment industry wasn't kind to LGBTQ+ actors. Staying closeted wasn't just a personal choice, it was a necessity. He had spent decades keeping that part of his life hidden, and when he was diagnosed with HIV, he approached it the same way. Even in his final months, he confided in only two people, his daughter Karen and close friend Anne Haney. His decision to keep his diagnosis private extended to the cast of the Brady Bunch. Most of them remained in the dark until just weeks before he died. When Reed finally decided to tell them, he didn't do it himself. Instead, he called Florence Henderson, his on-screen wife, and asked her to break the news. She later described the call as heartbreaking, saying his voice was weak but full of resolve. The cast was stunned. They had worked with him for years, but they never truly knew him. As his condition worsened, Reed withdrew from the public eye. In April 1992, he was admitted to Huntington Memorial Hospital in Pasadena. His weight dropped dramatically, and the pain became unbearable. He refused visitors, allowing only Karen and Anne Haney by his side. Even in his final days, he maintained control over his medical care, insisting on minimal intervention. He passed away on May 12, 1992, at just 59 years old. His death certificate listed colon lymphoma as the primary cause of death, with HIV as a contributing factor. After his passing, the details of his diagnosis became public, though not by choice. The National Enquirer broke the news, exposing the secret he had worked so hard to protect. The revelation sparked controversy. Some argued that the public had a right to know, while others saw it as a cruel invasion of privacy. His friend Anne Haney later reflected, "He went the way he wanted to, without publicity." Reed's story became part of a much larger conversation about Hollywood's treatment of LGBTQ+ actors. He wasn't alone in his struggle. Rock Hudson had died of AIDS-related complications in 1985, and Anthony Perkins, best known for Psycho, kept his HIV diagnosis a secret until his death in 1992. For many, Reed's case highlighted how deeply stigma still ran in the industry. Even in death, he was forced into a narrative he had spent his life trying to avoid. In the years that followed, his legacy took on new meaning. Fans remembered him as the warm, loving father figure from the Brady Bunch, while LGBTQ+ advocates saw him as a symbol of the challenges queer actors faced in Hollywood. His co-star, Christopher Knight, summed it up best. "If that was what gay was, it has no measure in the ability of somebody to be a fine representation of a good human being."